Streaming everywhere, Andrew.
Everywhere. We're
Streaming
everywhere. We're
everywhere.
on Hulu and Netflix and
Yeah.
Peacock and you name it, we're there.
I don't know if we
Flipping through their
Uh,
can.
TV and every channel, Andrew,
every
Andrew,
channel.
Andrew.
Yeah,
Andrew,
yeah.
Andrew, Andrew, Andrew.
Let me record this to the
Oh
cloud
gosh, that would
too.
be a nightmare.
There we go. All right.
Gene, my buddy Gene.
All right. So welcome to what we're calling the Licensing Playbook Live. Let me make sure I got all my settings right here, people. Let's see. Yeah, we're good. Um, Today's topic is handling pricing requests the right way. So when you get interest from a company and they're asking about pricing, like what do you do? You're probably like, are you guys gonna spend a whole hour talking about that, Andrew? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. It's pretty important. And if we run out of stuff to talk about with regards to that, we can talk about some other stuff too. But I think it's an important topic. So we're streaming every Wednesday at 5 Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, and 8 Eastern. My name's Andrew Krauss. I co-founded Eventbrite with Stephen Key over 26 years ago. 26, that's over 2.5 decades. Really, really long time. So I'm a very old man. To help inventors. That was our goal. And we've definitely accomplished that over 26 years. Stephen is traveling today, so he won't be here, but Dana and Chad are here, and they're fantastic. They're part of our outreach team as well as former InventRight coaching members. So I know you're going to have a lot, they're going to have a lot to share with you as well as myself. Chad and Dana, wave your hands there. There we go. Okay, cool. There they are. This weekly webinar is your go-to guide for learning how to license your product ideas to companies that are actively looking for innovation. And these days, most companies they are all looking for innovation, but there's no one person that's looking for everything all the time anyway. But definitely more open than ever. We started InventRight 26 years ago. Companies are more open than ever now to licensing, and you guys have amazing, amazing tools. And you have amazing advice coming from us, right? So it's a great time to be licensing your inventions. Each week we'll break down real world strategies and the exact steps you need to get in the front door of companies. You learn how to pitch with confidence, avoid common mistakes, and dramatically increase your chances of landing a licensing deal, which is what you want. Does anybody want to lay a license? Raise your hand if you want to. Yeah? No? No? So you just leave if you don't. Okay. I'll just do it. Um, Thanks for joining us live. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box or by digitally raising your hand here on Zoom. If you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, simply type your questions in the chat. We answer quite a few questions from those platforms as well because we're streaming to them. And if you're here, we might be able to unmute you too. We can also read your questions. So handling pricing requests the right way. You've got a company's attention. Now they're asking for pricing. Do you know how to respond? We'll walk you through exactly what to say, how to share a realistic manufacturing cost, and how to maintain leverage while having these advanced conversations. Learn how to answer pricing questions companies will ask when they're serious about moving forward. So Stephen is not here today. He's on vacation. So I'm going to be rounding heading things up here, and then Dana and Chad are going to be coming in with advice. And also, some of you are InventRight members, so if anybody wants to type in your advice in the area of handling pricing, you can type that into the chat, or I can unmute you and you can give your advice too. So let me switch so I can see everybody on the live stream so I can see their questions as well, because yes, I am paying attention to you guys. So if you guys have questions on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, please type your questions in there as well. So, I'm going to start this off. We got a lot of random different tips to help you in this area, but I'm going to start off with these thoughts. And I did write down some thoughts. I did actually write something down. Let me move that over here so I can look at it. Okay. So your job is to focus on what pain points the product solves, you know, how it fits in with their product line, how it adds perceived value to their existing customers. Does it have perceived value to them? And that's what you're really doing. You're not there to run their business. When you're licensing, it's their money, it's their workers, and it's their distribution. You're not there to run their business and tell them how to do things, you know? So the goal is not to discuss pricing, but to keep the conversation focused on their product line, the perceived benefits, and what next steps they need to take to evaluate your product. Now, with all that said, that's like a mindset thing, right, guys? So the mindset is that not they ask you, well, what does this cost? And you just have this definitive answer. You know, you got to stay focused on what is going to get a deal done. Can pricing kill a deal? Yes, it can. But a lot of inventing is redirecting. You know, I was just meeting with the master's class. David was on there, and a few of you other were on there as well. We just had a master's class with their students for an hour just before this, and now I'm coming on with you guys. And we were talking about this sort of thing. And we were talking about the fact that you can redirect the conversation. Now, when they bring up pricing, I'm not saying redirect the conversation, but I want to emphasize what's truly important. How it fits in with their product line. What do you like about the product? What's good for your customers? That's what's really important. Now, if the pricing doesn't work, that could be a problem, right? That could definitely be a problem. Let me change this here. Hold on. There we go. Just had one person that was on video is distracting me. So what is the killer combo? We've talked about this on some recent webinars. If you can make the product for less and it has this cool new benefit, that's the bomb. That's not always the case. Maybe it's around the same price and it has this new benefit. Or maybe it's more expensive and it has this new benefit, but they can tolerate the price increase, right? So these are things you need to think about with regards to pricing. Is it going to be less and have the benefit? Is it going to be around the same, or is it going to be more, right? And this is a very important conversation that you need to have with them, right? But let's be real. Most of the time, you want them to utilize their contract manufacturers. Let's also be real about this. Do you think most of these companies have their own manufacturing plants? So you raise your hand if you think they have their own. No, it's some manufacturer in China that makes stuff. Even freaking Apple doesn't have their own manufacturing plant, right? I know it's a captive plant and all that. That's kind of a bad example, but they might be making things for 20 different companies, 5 different companies, 2,000 different companies, right? So they usually have a contract manufacturer, usually in Asia or usually here. Some of them will have their own manufacturing plants, but it's not the most common thing, right? So it's not like they're in the office and they're going to be like, well, you know, let me go back and ask Bob. Hey, Bob, can you come over here? What do you think? You know, they need to go to their contract manufacturer and go, here's what the product is. Tell me what you think as far as pricing goes. Can we make it? And at what price? Right? So you need to give them enough information to do that, right? Chad, when you had your product, what did you have to do with regards to pricing? How did that work? I know your company was a slightly smaller company.
Yeah.
What did you what came up there?
So initially the company that I licensed my fire starter to, they dealt with all of the pricing. They dealt with reaching out, but yes, they used contract manufacturers. They got quotes from their trade partners overseas. So I really didn't have to deal with it too much on that end. But I will say that on the new project that I'm working on, I have had to deal with that quite a bit more. So I've honestly, I've had to dive into that kind of blind and learned a lot of that stuff as I go. I've been using AI chat a lot, you know, for just even terminology and things like that.
So your product's right here. So tell me what you did. Did you just say, because so this product is this is like a flint that you hit to start the sparks, start the fire, and then you blow on the tube, and then it actually comes out of the flint because the flint has a hole in it, and you kind of stoke the fire with you blowing air on it. So were they like, we get it, we have enough, I get it, we'll get some quotes, or were they like, I want detailed CAD drawings and specifications and stuff. So what
So
happened with this one?
So I think there was two major concerns that we ran into as far as getting it manufactured. One of the parts was the fact that they were going to be putting their mouth on it. So we wanted to make sure that it was food grade. That was one of the biggest things, that there was no toxins or anything like that.
Yeah,
And
but
then
it goes on, the mouth goes on this side, the rubber side, not the flint side, right?
right, right.
Right.
And so that tube, those are both food grade. We wanted to make sure of that. And then with the ferrocerium, as far as the striking element of it, uh, we had a really hard time finding a manufacturer that was able to do that. So most of them are not done in that way. So they had
They're
to do,
solid instead of
yeah. And in order to do that, you have to
hole.
drill through there, which, I mean, the thing is designed to create sparks. So I mean, there was a couple of shops that we tried that, they were trying not to burn their place down, trying to make this
But
prototype.
let's get back to like the earlier stages.
Mhm.
Did they need critical information from you
Like as
on
far as
this
specific
product?
materials to be used in that, no.
They didn't need that. They didn't
No.
ask for it. They understood the product. They're like, we're gonna get some quotes. We got enough info, right? And
Yeah,
that happens quite
yeah.
frequently.
It was more generally about, like, the type of material, what ultimately it needed to do. Because yeah, like you said, they have all of these contract manufacturers. Eh, even if you were to get those quotes on your own, it's almost, are you comparing apples to apples? You know what I mean? Because they have their so many different sources. It's,
Mm. Yeah, and that is very risky. So, in a former life, um, God, I don't know how long ago that was, 35 years ago or something. I sold computerized machining centers to machinists. I sucked at it. It wasn't my thing. This is my thing. And there were, they were like 50,000, $500,000 machines, and they only wanted to talk to me if they had a big contract. I was just the sales schmuck that was trying to sell them a very expensive machine. If they had a big contract, they were excited to talk to me. But the point is, I did get to talk to machinists, and sometimes they'd tell me about their frustrations, right? Because I became friends with some of them. And I don't know. Look at this. Look at this. This is a random product. I'm just using this example. Look at this product this inventor gave me. They want me to get a quote on this. Like they don't have a pot to piss in, as my dad would say. They don't have any money. I'm gonna give them a ridiculous quote because they're just wasting my time. you know so this is what you need to understand. Any of you, yeah, I see David shaking his head. He's like, anybody of you who've been in manufacturing know that you can waste a lot of time quoting people that will never buy, that don't have the money. So you need to be very aware of this fact that a lot of manufacturers, contract manufacturers that you could get a quote for to give the big company you're trying to license to, they might give you a really terrible quote, like that's so far off what the company would pay when they're making 100 or 500,000 units a year. So you got to be really careful. I got a quote from this little company in the United States or something, or even in Asia, and you tell them the price and they're like, whoa. You got to be really careful about that. You can get
when I just
yourself
feel
into
like
big
a new
trouble.
inventor, we almost don't know enough of the landscape to even know if that's an outrageous price or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe they're going off of a totally different minimum order quantity. You know what I mean? Maybe this company is thinking of that you're talking to is going to purchase 10,000 of them, and you're getting a quote for 1,500. Those numbers, even at the same materials, those numbers are drastically different.
Yes, yes. So a lot of times you can do, but even with simple products, we got this very simple product here. There's a tube, there's a plastic, mouthpiece, and then there is this flint, which is unusual because flints don't normally have a hole where air can come through it, right? But it's not rocket science. But even on that simple product, there was some things to figure out, but they're not asking him like, what type of PVC or what type of material is this? And it's not really relevant. Now, if Chad could find a flint that already has a hole in it for another product, that would be very relevant
That's it. Okay,
manufacturing
that's a
information.
super good point. So the mouthpiece, do you know what that is? What does that remind you of? So
I don't know.
those metal straws that they have now, they have these little like covers that go over them. Well, they have like thicker ones. They have like I don't even know what they are. They're like these little balls in tea or something. What are those called? The
Bubble tea?
boba? Is that what
Oh,
it is?
yeah, it
Boba
looks
tea or
like
Yeah,
something?
about a
yeah, those
So
boba tea straw. Yeah, yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
straw cover. No, on the other side, the mouthpiece, that's a straw cover
Oh,
for that straw. Yeah. So they were
yeah.
able to find that was already, so they were able to just go get
uh,
a bunch of those. So they didn't have to do tooling for it, which
Yeah.
is cheaper.
Yeah.
That you can outsource that, and that part already
see,
exists. So they didn't have to go
that
make that part.
Yeah, and it's going to vary based on the complexity of the product. So there's not always one way to help a potential licensee with manufacturing. But let's say there was a product that was somewhat like this. It had a tube, it had a mouthpiece, and it went for a certain price, and Chad could tell people about it. And he could say, well, and then I found this other product here, and let's say there was a flint that had a hole in it. Oh, and that's going for 5.95. Like if you can give a potential licensee, they can go, all right, and I know that's retail. So let's say there's a flint with a hole in it and it's 5.95, and they're like, well, it's usually a 5-time markup or so, so we're
Yeah,
probably
they can
going to
do
get
some
that for
backwards math on that.
but yeah, a buck 50 or something. Like that makes it easy for them to say yes. So if you and some people go, well, I can't tell them that. Yeah, you can. So you could have no manufacturing experience, use common sense, look at similar product. Well, there's that product over there, it's 1995, and then there's this product that uses that component, and that whole product, the whole thing is under 12.95.
Mhm.
You can actually share that information with them. And sometimes when they're a little bit on the fence, that can push them over to go, okay, it's worth it for us because what they're trying to assess initially, can we make it and can we make it a reasonable price? So if you can provide them some initial information to go, it's worth our time, because let's say you're talking to a marketing guy and he's like, yeah, I think it's worth wasting our engineer's time or our sourcing person's time to reach out to our contract manufacturer to see how much this is going to cost. So sometimes you're trying to show them, yes, it can be made cost effectively with information like this. A lot of times you don't even need to do that. They're like, do you need any info from me? And they're like, no, I get it. It's a tube, it's this, that. I have enough info. We're good. I'll get back to you. We'll see if we can make this at a reasonable price. You know.
Well, then they got, then they came back with like I think it was like 50 samples or something like that. That they ordered. So you actually got to check them out, make sure that all of the components, work
Well,
the
but
way that you
that's
thought they
really
were supposed
good. That's
to.
going to the next level. To get
Right.
them to get a quote is one thing, but to get them to say, "Hey, we got some samples made," then things are really moving along nicely, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say that also, it's always great if you have that information, but I think in all the companies that I've contacted as an independent inventor, no one really expected me to know that. You know what I mean? I mean, they might ask that question, and I mean, it's totally acceptable to say that, you can look into that and get back to them. But
But
I don't think,
if you have common sense information to
right,
provide, you should provide it. And
right.
it might be just be citing similar products with certain components or this or that. Make it easy for them. Now, but what Chad says he's working on a new product and he's like, "Oh, it's not quite as easy. I'm running into more roadblocks." And that's normal. And there's definitely more complicated products than this fire starter. This is a nice simple product. There's like a tube, there's a flint, and then there's a this is there. I guess there's one more
Well,
part.
and
This looks like it's heat shrunk over top of it.
even the new one is simple though, honestly, but even simple, I mean, you're getting into things like if you're doing it on your own, if you're reaching out to them on your own, this project's a little weird. It's not like the I'm trying to do more on my end. So I've been in touch with a contract manufacturer, and I've been talking about it before. So there's like certain like lingo and stuff that I don't understand. I mean, there's pricing differences as far as whether they're covering it from the time it leaves their port and all of this other stuff. But I mean, it's
But,
all a learning
but getting
experience.
getting to the point when you're having these conversations, you want to encourage them to get a quote from their factory. So I would say, but you can ask them, what are the next steps here? And say, are you at the stage where you like the product enough where you want to get a quote, see what this is going to cost you guys? Because this is your business. And I wrote down a couple things you can say here. This is kind of so let's see. So like the company says, so what do you think this should sell for? Well, that's a great question. You know your customers and margins way better than I ever could. So I'd really love to get your take on that. That would be a really great conversation to have, right? If they press for a more specific number, well, I've looked at similar items around, give an example or two. But again, my focus is making sure it delivers the right benefit. I'm confident you know the best way to price it and if it fits your product line. So if they seem hesitant, or they're testing you, the reason I prefer to defer to you on pricing is because you already know what customers expect and what works for your distribution model. My goal is to make the product as easy as possible to plug into your system. Or if they're really friendly, you could say, I'd love to hear your thoughts, where you think it would fit price-wise with the rest of your product line, then kind of pause and let them talk. So you really want to get them to do this work for you. And most of the time they will. Not 100% of the time. You want to get them to get some quotes because it moves the deal forward. Things are moving forward very nicely when they say they're going to do that.
Well,
Yeah,
and
Chad?
a nice counter to that. I mean, like you were talking about, just kind of things that you could tell them. I mean, that's where their area of expertise lies, and as creators, we can stay in our lane. You know, like you would respond to them like you just did, Andrew, but you could also say, you know, should that not hit your price point as a product developer, I'm happy to, you know, make some modifications to bring that down with different
Mm,
materials and things like that. That's our lane. That's where we can be effective. We may not know all of the dollars and cents that they have, but we, like you said, we have common sense. We can know that this material is cheaper than that material, and if we can
right.
make a new variation of our product that is cheaper for them, that's where we can bring that value then.
Yeah, and I highly recommend that you offer your help. You say, I am a product developer inventor and I look at things in a different way. And so if your contract manufacturer come back and the pricing isn't good or there's some issues, let me know what they are because I might be able to come at it from a different angle or change a
Yep.
feature or change something. I'll tell this story. I think I've told this before, but our negotiation coach, Paul Sorensen, he was working on a product and he knew this potential licensee, the particular company. He'd already had a relationship with them. And he sent him the product. He's like, oh, this is good. I want to send it to my contract manufacturer in Asia. He sent it off, and then they came back and they gave it to the CEO of the company that Paul was talking to. And it said basically the report said, we can't make this and we can't make it at a reasonable price. And they said a bunch of stuff about it, why they couldn't do it. Now, because this is where having a relationship with the company and having them see you as a problem solver is very beneficial. So he literally just sent that off to Paul and said, no, they say it can't be done. He didn't even look at it. He didn't even look at it. Paul looked at it, our negotiation coach, and he's like, they have no idea what they're talking. He didn't say it this way, but they have basically, in a nice way, said they have no idea what they're talking about. They didn't look at this the right way at all. And he showed it to the CEO, and he's like, "You're right. This is ridiculous." So here's the thing that's really shocking. If a company comes back and they tell you it's not going to work or it can't be made at a reasonable price, don't assume they gave it their 100%. Like the marketing guy loves it, but they sent it off to Asia and they half-assed it, you know? So my point is, with regards to pricing, the closer you can be to them wanting to share that information with you, they won't always do this 100% of the time by any means. But if you don't ask, they probably won't. So tell them that you're open to looking at whatever the results were at, and if there's issues, you might be able to come up with some solutions. So that's what Paul did, and they showed it to him, and he's like, "No, this is all wrong." And the CEO was like, "You're right, this is all wrong. They did a terrible job." So I know for a fact this happens. Sometimes they don't do it right. Yeah, you love the marketing guy, he loves your product, but they didn't do the research properly, and they didn't understand it. So what can you do to do well on pricing? Make sure they really understand it. So when the information gets sent over to the manufacturing guys, they're not misunderstanding the product. So I wouldn't just say, "Do you have everything you need?" "Oh yeah, we're good." Say, "Do you understand all the components of this and what's required and how it works? And is there anything you need from me that you can then give to the manufacturing guys so this is done and done right? I'm here to help." And he's like, "No, I understand it." And like he recites to you like what it is. "No, I get it. I'm good." A lot of times they'll do that.
Well,
But
and
if
that
there's
is
something
it's
you can provide, that would be great. It doesn't have to be CAD drawings or something. You're like, "I don't have CAD drawings. I just have this crude prototype." You know,
Well, and that's scary, you know what I mean? That they, I mean, that's out of your hands. They go over there, they get their price, and if that price is too high, that's almost like you know you're one shot. So if there's anything you can help with on the foreground, I mean, that's I don't know.
pictures,
It's
video.
nerve-wracking once it's out of your hands, and you know if they come
It
back with
is,
a price that's out of out of it's
Well,
not feasible for them, then
Dana.
well, yeah, I
as
just
long.
want to,
Go
oh,
ahead. Sorry. No, you're good.
um, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I just want to say that I think that no matter what industry our products in, we need to kind of become an expert in that industry of what products, what we perceive our product to be made out of. Like, for example, if your product is made out of something that needs to be fireproof, um, you need to understand that material very well and how much that material costs. It's one thing to pay, 30, 40, 50, $100 to make one prototype, but and that happens a lot where we're only making one prototype, so we're putting a little bit more money into it. But you can't, a company, if it's going to cost a company, 50, 60, $70 to produce the product, that's unless they're selling really high-end products, that's you just have to take that into consideration. I really didn't think that I had anything to talk about on this topic, but as we're talking, I'm thinking back of my shower caddy. And because I knew the mesh material that this product needed to be made out of, because I had studied materials like fabric materials, cut and sew fabrics for so long, that when I finally got a company, I was very savvy in when we were talking about what the mesh was and how it was cut on the grain, or how it was cut this way or that way, and how it needed to be not molded, not get moldy because it was in the shower. So, I was able to, even if I wasn't able to give them price quotes, I was able to educate them on things that could help them get better price quotes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you
Yeah.
should share that information with them or ask them if they
Yeah.
need it. What do they need? Um, but the killer combo, which we're not going to get most of the time, is it's going to come in at a lower price than other similar products and have your benefit. That's great. If you got that, and sometimes you don't know you have that. You might like, oh, it might be less, it might be a little more, it might be around the same price. I don't friggin' know, but I'm going to show the companies my product and show them the marketing, and the ones that like the benefit are going to do this work for me. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen 100% of the time, but most of the time, um, they're going to do that work for you. Now, if there's simple information or complex information, some of you have, you've really developed the product. You have CAD drawings, you have this, you have that, blah, 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 you know. But don't assume that's what they want. Like, ask them what they need. Every company is different, you know. And if you have a crude prototype, could you do like 5 or 6 pictures of it from all different angles so they really get it? You know, could you do a separate video that's just for the manufacturing guys? Like you did a marketing video, but it wasn't really showing all the pieces and the components. Could you do just a video that's a few minutes that they can pass along the manufacturing guys where you're saying, okay, well, there's this mouthpiece right here, and maybe you even say silly stuff like, hey, it came from a boba tea thing, and then, this product just be, no, they don't know your product. It's a flint, but it has a hole in it. And oh, I
Well,
found this other
yeah,
product
you
and
got to
it's
get
like
into
this.
the details of it once once they're actually interested in it. Because yeah, like that was a great example just from like the demo video. And you can't always, especially, I mean, that's super simple product, and you can't tell exactly what's what by the demo video.
Right.
So
And some of you may go, Andrew, I'm not an engineer. I don't know this stuff. But there's basic things you need to know. But there's basic things you can give to them to give to the manufacturer, um, that will help them understand the product. And it's boring, it's not exciting marketing stuff. It's the details that they could easily miss. And you're all up in your own head about it. But if you don't share these things, they could miss it and they could misquote it. They could not get it. And if you have encouraging things to say about these other products or this or that, or understanding the product or different thoughts, oh, this piece needs to be fireproof or whatever, share that with them. You know, don't do a long rambling inventor video. You know, it should be pretty short. Shoot it a couple times if you need to. You could probably just shoot it all the way through and just talk, right? I don't think anybody should be making a 15-minute video, you know. But you might do something under, 3 minutes might be okay if you got enough to share, but just keep it all very relevant to manufacturing. Okay. Um, so, in my opinion, and it's not always the case because there's always anomalies, if a company's really interested, they're going to want to do that. They're never going to assume that it can be made at a certain price. They're always going to do that, you know? And if you're talking with them, you can ask them what their process is. Sometimes they're doing that and they're not even telling you. Sometimes if you didn't get on the phone with them and talk to them, they're going ahead and getting those quotes and they're not even telling you about that. But the main point I want to make here is if you can be connected to them so that you're asking about the what process is and the next step, and you know when they're doing it, and you're offering help for before they send it and when it comes back. Both before you send it, do they have all the information they need? And they might say, yeah, yeah, we have enough info. And you're like, no, no, there's things that are confusing here. I want to give them this. And go, well, you don't, and say, can I give you this? And maybe they don't use it, maybe they do. And then when it comes back, are they going to say, oh, here is the exact issue? A lot of times they won't. But if you offer, hey, if there's an issue or if there's concerns about please let me know. I look at things from a different perspective because I'm an inventor, a product developer, and maybe I'll have a solution if there is a problem. Oh, wow, this person's very professional, you know. But this is their business. You're not telling them their business. Um, Now, there are more complex products, right? There are some products that, you don't just come up with an invention and go, well, I have this invention and it's a robot and it jumps up on your roof and shingles your house. So guys don't need to sweat in the 120-degree heat and nobody's going to fall off. Or you don't have to worry about product liability, liability insurance and stuff, people falling off the roof. And then they say, well, how do you make that? And you're like, I don't know. you know, that's getting into wacky inventor territory. So there's simple products like this, and then there's products that you kind of need to know a little bit about how it's made. Now, maybe the product is complex that you invented, but there's a bunch of other people selling that product, but you just added a little hinge on the side here. You don't need to know how that thing is made. You don't need to know about the inner workings. You don't need to know about the electronics. You just tell them, look, there's like 5 products that do this, and you have no freaking idea how those electronics work or how this or that works, but you know how your piece works. And you just go, well, there's 5 companies selling that. And what I'm doing over here is I'm putting it on the bottom and we're doing a living hinge here. And that's my piece. That's my contribution. Well, they're going to be confident. Well, all those other companies are making that. And she just told me we're adding this hinge here. Okay, that could be enough, right? So, but what if they didn't know that those other products were out there? You need to say it. Even if you're like 95% sure they know, like say it because people are freaking lazy. They're working in a corporation sometimes. They get this job as a quote. They're not the marketing person's excited. They're like, oh, this is going to be very expensive. But if they got it on their table, like they can't say that if there's these other products. And it's like, well, it's going to add like maybe 50 cents to the cost. They can't come back and say that because you gave them the information that there's all these other products that are more or less the same, and they got it all figured out, and it's at this price. And the marketing person is like, yeah, we can pay that. So this is really rudimentary common sense stuff. Now, are there going to be some situations that the product, you're gonna need to get really deep into it and it's gonna get really technical? Sure. And if you have one of those products. Let's see. I don't see any questions in the chat. Let's see if we got some questions here.
You have a couple
Um,
good questions here that I've been reading
in the
in the chat on the Zoom.
oh, why am I not seeing them? Oh, I'm seeing one private. Oh, I got to click on
Oh,
everyone. Oh, I'm
okay.
missing them. Oh shit, there's a ton of them. Sorry, pardon my language. Go ahead,
Andrew.
Dana. You want to ask one?
Um,
You don't
there's
have to
was
have the answer.
one
Just read
there
it.
well there was one
Well, and while you're looking
One's
that up
real
real quick,
simple.
I wanted to bring up another thing that was relevant as far as pricing, kind of from the other end. And I know Andrew, you've touched on this a little bit, but say you do your product and your product has a little bit more of an expensive price point, and you've done it as
Mhm.
sufficiently as you can. Uh, to pay attention to the existing products that they have. I know, Andrew, you've mentioned this plenty of times. If their typical products cost $20, the odds of them bumping up and doing a $200 product is pretty slim, So
Mhm.
pay attention to
And
the
you'd be
pricing on there too.
surprised how many inventors, but it's so cool.
Right.
They should sell it. I see their products in stores. They're going to do whatever they already do. If they
Mhm.
sell cheap fall apart products, they're going to make a cheap fall apart product. If they sell middle of the road products, they're going to sell it middle of the road. If they sell really high end stuff, they're going to do high end. They're not going to do a different quality level than all their other products.
Right.
They're
I
just
learned
not.
that. I'll tell you a story. So I was pitching my shower caddy, and I reached out to this company that does whatever they did, shower caddies, they did, stuff. And the guy was super nice. I had a couple conversations with him. He actually wanted to see the sell sheet. And then I might have even sent him a prototype because I could make my own prototype. So that's a whole nother conversation about when to send a prototype and when not to. But he called me back after he got it, and he said, and he said, it's crap. And I said, what? He said, it's crap. And I was like, what do you like? What? And he said, well, that's a term in the business world, stands for can't realize a profit. Cannot,
Uh.
it's not gonna be profitable for them. And so he was laughing about it. And I'm like, oh man, I'm told you can't realize a profit. So I was glad he told me that. But now, getting more seasoned at what I'm doing, it's so important to look at the price point. And although they did similar products, their price point was way higher than what mine would have sold for at $10.
Hmm.
And I got it now. I didn't really get it then, but the guy was super nice. He was great. He was super helpful. I don't think I ever got the prototype back, so I just like to think that somebody's using it in their shower,
He actually gave
and
great feedback, but it sounded
yeah.
like he was telling your product was crap.
Yeah, you crap
But
realize
that
a
was
profit. I
not
was like,
not what we,
and
not
he
what you
was
thought.
laughing about it because he knew that I didn't know what he
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's
but that's a
funny.
term there. But there's a question about how does the new tariffs change the pricing of having your product manufactured? And honestly, I can't answer that. We haven't seen a problem with companies coming back and saying, tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. We can't manufacture. It's too high. It just really doesn't affect it.
Well,
I don't think
because
so.
and that's very important with pricing. So every company in that field is competing on the same thing. It's not like they're charging one company one tariff and another company the next tariff. So it's it's a level playing field,
And
you
and
know.
I'm not
Uh,
saying that I'm not saying it doesn't change pricing. I'm just saying that is not
of course it
anything
does.
that
Yeah.
that is not, yeah, just to be clear, I'm just saying that is not something that we're hearing from companies we're reaching out to.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And consumers are they're
They're
just getting used to
they're
paying higher
they're
prices for everything.
and companies are adapting just like they did
Yeah.
through COVID, just like they did through anything else. They're adapting. They have to adapt to survive. And
Yeah.
there's probably going to be
Richard,
companies that won't, and that's just
let
the
me
way
see.
it
I'll
is.
unmute you. Go ahead, Richard. Thank you, Dana. That was good info.
Hi.
Hi,
Um,
Richard.
how you doing, Steve? Andrew,
That's
sorry.
okay. People get it.
When it comes to pricing, if one company says it's too high and they get it back and saying it's too high for them, and another company takes a look at it, are they going to the same manufacturer? So it's like, are they going to the same place to
Well,
see about it's getting made and
based on
everything?
your question, I have a thought. Different companies want different profit margins. Some companies want higher profit margins than others. Some companies are going to do massive, massive volume and are okay with lower profit margins. So, what might be too expensive for one company might be fine for another, you know? Um, I don't think most of the time they're going to the same manufacturer. That could be possible. It depends if the industry is small. Um, but it's also their perception of what fits into their model. You know, like one company, they might be selling 50,000 units a year of their typical product, and the other one is selling 500,000 units, right? The one selling 500,000 units might be okay with a smaller profit margin because they're a monster and they got great distribution. And then the one selling 50,000, you say, we want higher profit. We don't want too many products. We don't want to manage too many products. We want those higher profit margin products. So that's very valid. So, you know, when a company says it's not a high enough profit margin, that doesn't mean that that would be the case for every company. You know, you can ask them about their philosophy. I wouldn't suggest asking that until they bring it up that it doesn't make sense.
Well, and
You
I
don't want to
think,
you don't want to put it. Go ahead.
I was just more so saying that are they going to get the same quotes from getting a quote from the same person or same people?
I would answer that. I don't think so. I don't think that, I think that, especially if your product has like multiple components and they're going to source those different pieces and things like that. So, I mean, and that's what I was talking about earlier. How can, I mean, as the inventor, how can we know that they're comparing apples to apples? Because they might be getting this piece done over here. I mean, that could vary so wildly. And I think the short answer is that even if they did, we wouldn't know. You know what I mean? Because they're not sharing that. You know, I've
Yeah,
even tried, and I found that, you know, even getting into the licensing deal, when I'd ask some of those specific questions, they consider that to be almost like proprietary information. They don't want to share who they're going and who they're sourcing through or whatever. At least in my experience, I would say it's hard telling. And even if they were, it almost wouldn't matter because how would you know if they're comparing this exact thing to that exact thing? There's so many variables, even as far as
I
down to how it gets shipped over here.
I think that when they come back saying the pricing isn't working, you can ask. You can say, "Did you go to the one contract manufacturer you typically use, do you think it might be in a very whimsical, kind of nice way? Do you think it would be worth it to get some quotes from people you don't typically go to that might be able to do these other components? Maybe your guys aren't good with these components or this type of manufacturing, and they might be like, yeah, I think we could do that. Let's give that a shot. So that's definitely something that's worth doing. Um,
Oh,
the Wreath Machine on YouTube. Thank you, Richard. Can you suggest the licensee use your manufacturer that is being used? So some of you, if you're manufacturing your own product, um, you could suggest that they use your manufacturer. I think that, to be honest, if they're okay with that, you might question their size. And so this is why I'm not saying you wouldn't do that. So that you're an independent vendor, you're manufacturing, selling your own product, and you got this little manufacturer and you're selling like, maybe like a couple thousand units a month or something. These are big companies. Suggesting they use your manufacturer when they're rinky-dink probably wouldn't make sense. Now, I've seen scenarios where the inventor is using a manufacturer because they're a manufacturer selling the product themselves, and they could scale up, they could go big, and you can suggest that, you
Depends
know.
on the capacity of that particular manufacturer, really.
Yeah, but usually it's like your guy's doing a one-up mold, and this big company might do. I talked to somebody the other day, it was a small product, they would do a 50-up mold. There's 50 of the products. Mold closes, injects, and opens, and 50 pop out. Closes, injects, and so you got to realize your mold might be useless for large volume they're doing. The pricing's not good. Now, in that case, you could say, hey, I'm just using this small manufacturer with a one-up mold, and this is my pricing. But you got to be careful about that because they're like, oh,
Well, and is that worth mentioning? I've had a few companies mentioning tooling costs,
yeah, yeah.
initial tooling
If you've
costs to make.
invested in tooling and you've been manufacturing it yourself, but any big company that would like, usually they're not even using the same mold, but it is worth bringing up. It might be an asset. Definitely. I've had people that they've got inventory and they've got tooling and they've got all that lined up and they're doing really good volume, and then might be very valid. They might want to use the same manufacturer, you know.
Especially if it's already established and they
Yes.
can handle that kind of capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. Isn't it amazing we could talk for a whole hour on this topic? But it is
I
very
didn't think we
important.
were going to
So,
be able to be honest with you, man.
well, let's set some yeah, I agree, Chad, but let's set some context here. If the pricing's not right, you will not do a deal. It will kill a deal every time. It's a very common thing that kills deals. So the fact that we are spending an entire hour dedicated to this niche topic, it's extremely, extremely important. And so if I wanted to share something with regards to pricing, this on a rudimentary level should be done at the ideation stage. You should ask yourself, like, okay, I came up with this idea. Okay, here are the other products in the space. These are kind of the companies. Can this be made at a reasonable price? I've seen people that have these, what I call Swiss Army knife inventions. It has this and this and this and this. And they're like, I look at it, I'm like, dude, like, that's not going to be a reasonable price for the other companies selling in the space. That's not going to make sense. Maybe you chop some of those features off or something, and it can be. But that should be something that you're doing when you're coming up with the idea, when you're thinking about the idea. Is this going to be, who are the companies that are going to sell this? And is this going to sell at a certain price? Maybe you lop some features off. And you're like, oh, good. Now it's at a price. But most inventors aren't doing this. Now it's at a price when I see all the people selling in this space, like let's say a little kitchen gadget space, something that's simple, one-piece plastic injection mold, like some little tool or something. And you look at all the products and you see the price range and you go, well, I think I should fit within that price range. You have no idea how important that is. It's like, it's everything. It's everything. And that should be done when you're coming up with the idea. It's so, so important. So you could be killing the deal before you're doing all this work and you're just wasting your time because you didn't do that. But if you did that, and then you're in front of companies, they're like, oh, I like this product. And they're like, oh, look, they're looking at it. They're like, yeah, we can do that at the right price, because you kind of like, you notice that some little pancake spatulas go from this price to this price, and you got a pancake spatula, right? And it has some little feature on it or something, and you're like, well, they go from $3.99 to $15.99, and you just don't see anything over $15.99. Well, can I make it with my cool feature, under that $15.99 price, and preferably maybe towards the $9.99 price? I'm just coming up with a random example. Don't quote me on this, but and you're like, yeah, because it just has this hook that does this or does that, or it clips in with another device or something, yeah, and when you should be asking yourself that question. So I think that wasn't even a thing I was
Yeah.
going to bring up. If you
And if you
ask
don't even, and
yourself
if you
that
don't know,
question from the
yeah.
get-go, before you make your sell sheet, before you file your PPA, before you make your list of companies, you're going to be better off. And if you've gone further than that and you haven't asked yourself that question, go ahead and ask yourself now.
Yeah, because you should, like, if the answer is no, you should always find out. Because, like, Dana, I think that is a great point about kind of becoming an expert in your particular category. I mean, you should know,
Yeah.
you're going to be working in these materials and you want to sound knowledgeable. You should know the materials you're working with. You should know the price points of the other products that are in your category. All of that stuff is relevant. And if, as you're watching these videos, if that's something that hadn't occurred to you before, I mean, then that's fine. You just start looking into it now. It's nothing to do some market research and research some materials. And I mean, we live in a time where AI is at your fingertips. I mean, you can say, how can I take this product out of this material
No.
and make it cheaper or better, or
I know. How did we ever do it with that Chat GPT? Like in
it's
the
crazy.
olden days, a horse
I
and
tell my
buggy,
kids
we
that
were
all the
working
time. I'm
on it.
like, we live in a time where you literally have every piece of information at your fingertips. Like when I ask you,
Yeah.
you don't know something, that's not even a valid excuse anymore.
No, no.
Yeah, I mean, you could ask Chat. I've never done specifically that search, but you could say, Chat, I'm working on
Saying Chad
a
or
pan
chat, you can ask me anything you want.
Chat. Yeah, Chat may not
Chad,
know,
not you,
but
Chad. You're smart, but
I don't
come
know.
on,
Maybe a
man.
way different answer.
Chat is a little
No,
smarter than Chad.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
kind
well,
of think.
Chat doesn't bother calling companies all day long like Chad
That's
does, so
right.
I
That's
appreciate
I'm
right.
Chat.
glad that they don't.
Yeah,
I'd be out of a job.
yeah, that's what you're doing for our gateway clients. So, but you could ask Chat. You could say, I'm working on a pancake spatula product, and can you give me the price range for pancake spatulas? And it would tell you. I know it would. You want to research, make sure it's right. But you could also go on Google Images and type in pancake spatula, and then you could see the price ranges on there too. It's you guys have a lot at your disposal. But I'm very proud that we spent an entire hour. We still got some time left here, going over this topic, if there's one thing you guys are going to leave, and we're not quitting quite yet, we still got 8 or 9 minutes here, knowing is pricing is everything. It's everything. It is. Now, you can't have a terrible price product with a good price. Okay, I got it. But you could have a great product that's not a right price and it's dead in the water. You know, are there categories that can sustain a high price? Absolutely, there is. But you need to look at the category and figure out who your potential licensees are and all that. So let's see. Jeff wrote. I'll just read it off the top. Jeff said, "Here's a quick take on pricing. Pricing. If you're able to find a successful product comparison that in itself is valuable information as to what your product could sell at retail." From retail back out to distribution chain points, and you'll have a good idea of what your cost of goods sold could be for your product. Yeah, if they see, you don't even, I mean, yeah, it's commonly they say a 5-time markup. So if the product's selling, but that's not solid for all product categories all the time. Selling at retail for 5, they probably made it for about 1. That's typically, but you don't always know that. But you could not even say that. And if you just look at other products in this space and you're like, yeah, mine could be made for around that range, that's fine. But Jeff, you're absolutely right. So I think the other thing that I really want you guys to leave with is that you think you don't have anything to share.
Oh,
I want you guys to leave going, I have common sense. Andrew and Dana and Chad gave me some tips here, and Bentright gave me some tips. I do have something to share on pricing, even though I don't understand manufacturing. I don't understand the different types of plastics. I don't understand if there's 50 types of plastics that I would use in this particular product. You don't need to a lot of the time. So you're going to go away going, I'm going to make sure when a company gets interest in my product that I really ask them, do you really have everything you need? There's some things they could get confused on. Can I give you something? A video, some pictures, just a couple written lines of text. This is how you might be not sure about this about the product, but here's my answer to it. Little FAQ about, I've never stated that before, a little FAQ, like 5 FAQs about the product that they might get hung up on. Is there everything? Can I give them everything they need to get good pricing on this? And then let them know, look, I'm creative. I look at things from a different perspective. If you come back and it doesn't look like the manufacturing, there are some manufacturing issues or pricing issues, please let me know. I might have a solution. It might take me a little bit, might I come up with a solution? Because if you don't tell them that, most of them won't give it to you. You have to tell them that. So that's really important. You're probably like, well, I don't need to tell them that. They're going to come back and share everything with me. No, they won't. They won't. But if they like you and you're like, oh, there are problems. So, okay, great. Think about it. You work in a corporation. You're like, oh, they told me it's a problem. Okay, well, I'll just forward this off. Remember I told the story about Paul and that CEO that he knew? CEO just sent it off, didn't even bother to look at it. And he looked at the manufacturing quote and said, they didn't understand this. They didn't do this right at all. And it wasn't on him. He provided the right information, but they were half-assing the quote. They didn't really look at it in the right way. And he's like, and the CEO is like, you're right, this is garbage. They didn't really give this a thorough look. So if you want to worry about something, worry about them not understanding your product, not quoting it correctly, not getting it, not putting enough effort in. Is that a legitimate worry? Is that why licensing deals don't get done? Absolutely. Absolutely. You think that they are going to treat your product with as much care and concern as you, the inventor? No. The manufacturing dude doesn't care as much as the marketing guy, and definitely doesn't care as much as you. The marketing guy may freaking love it, but that's not his job, you know? So know that. And if you know that, that's great.
Somebody had a really good point, and it's just like, look at comparable products. I know when I was doing my shower caddy, I was all worried about manufacturing quotes. And there's other shower caddies out there. There were other products that were similar to mine. Can they be manufactured at a decent price? Yes. Did I really need to dig down into manufacturing quotes? No. Yes, it's very important to understand that, but but it's not, you know, somebody had mentioned, I think it was Brandon mentioned, his is simple. It's paper, it's printed, it's super simple. Does he need to know, have manufacturing quotes? Probably not. He probably doesn't need to know that. It really depends on your product, really. Because there were similar products like mine out there, so I knew they could be manufactured. And if these companies were manufacturing something pretty similar, then the cost of manufacturing mine was probably going to be pretty inexpensive too.
I think where they get hung up is if you're asking them to do something dramatically in the way of manufacturing than
Yeah.
they're used to. Dana,
Yeah.
remember we had that Bridging the Gap company on with our students. I forget the name of the company, but they literally, this is an unusual company. All their products were out of wood. And
Yeah, that was a
everything,
kitchen. Yeah.
yeah,
Kitchen company,
it
yeah.
was a kitchen company.
Yeah.
They made more than cutting boards. They made wood
Yeah.
everything.
Everything was wood.
Manufactured in the USA, actually. They're
Everything.
like, don't show me a plastic product. Don't show me a metal product. We're unusual. We only make products out of wood.
Mhm.
So, you know, now if they did want to make something out of something other than wood, now they're gonna be like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
If you go to a company and you're like, oh, you get these complex electronics and you look at their product line, they don't have a single electronic product, or maybe they just have simple things like it has a light in it, a flashlight or something, you know, okay, maybe. But really look at their product line. When you ask for a company to draw too far outside the lines, it'll probably hang things up. And that's when, if you really want to go out on a limb, which I don't really recommend, it's almost a waste of time, they're going to put more on you. And that's where it might not be everything that we've been talking about. But you have something to offer. You have something to offer them for them to make their job easier, to make it easier for them to understand. And when they say it can't be done, maybe it can, then you might think, well, I don't know anything about manufacturing. Well, what if they share with you the problem about it and you're like, well, we don't have to make it a living hinge. We could make it something else. And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, well, in that case, you know, and maybe
Mhm.
that's something you even share up front if that's the case. Hey, it could be done a couple different ways that would still provide the functionality. Oh, good. Give them that information. You have something to offer, even if you have no manufacturing experience. That's very empowering. You know, I didn't start this webinar thinking like that's the takeaway, and I think that is. What do you think, Dana and Chad?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, cool.
I was gonna
Go
say
ahead.
I'm gonna go against the grain. I don't think your product's expensive enough. You should plate it in gold and then see if they'll manufacture it.
Yeah. And give it an extra 20
Yeah.
features on
Don't
there
forget the
too.
bottle opener.
Yeah, it's called,
Yeah,
we
You know,
call it,
and I've been asked this question before, and Chad, you kind of talked about it with your product. They said, can I take products off of other products and make one product? And I said, absolutely. You took a product off of a straw, a tube, you put them all together and made a new product. And those are kind of the easiest ones because all that stuff is already being manufactured. It's already
Yeah,
there.
because
You're just
yeah,
taking
for
all
sure.
those different pieces off of other products and creating something new.
and the side benefit is he got to drink the boba tea after he bought the boba, got
I've
the
never
I
had
straw
don't
that.
even know what that is. What are
I don't
those?
know. It has
I
like
don't even know there's
balls
like
in it
these
or
weird
something.
little balls in the bottom
It
of
looks
You
the
like
guys are so East Coast, I swear.
I did not. Oh, we sell it here, but I don't know. It
Oh,
doesn't.
really?
Not my
Is
jam,
that like
Yeah.
that's
a
for
West
sure.
Coast thing, the
Yes.
boba tea? Okay.
Yes.
It's like,
Unless they start
I've
putting them
seen
in
it.
Budweisers, I probably won't have it.
I had so much boba tea, I got tired of it. I'm not even that excited about boba
I've never
anymore.
had it.
It got old to me. So
No,
anyway,
no.
all
But
right. So guys, I want to remind everybody to take care, keep inventing. I hope you guys had fun with this. I hope you learned something. I hope you got a little inspired. And you can do this. You have a lot more at your disposal than you think, as far as your skills and your guidance. You can help these big companies. You know, it's scary when it's a big company, right? But realize these are just people like you and me within the company. So when you're just helping the people
Can't pay
do
that way.
things, you can do that. You can do this. You can totally do this. All right. So don't be scared. You're dealing with people, not companies. A lot less scary that way. All right. So take care. Keep inventing, everybody. The lights went out in here.
Andrew's got to go pay his light bill again.
Yeah, I
oh,
got.
Andrews, geez,
I'm a
Louise.
geeky. I have an automated system, and in my office, the one light turns off at a particular time. I'm just that much of a geek.
That's his
So.
wife. That means it's time to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's our
Time to come
20th
home.
anniversary today. Actually,
Happy
we're going to
anniversary,
go out to
Andrew.
dinner right now. We're
Cool.
celebrating our 20 years of marriage. So
Happy anniversary, man.
yeah. All right. See you guys.
Happy anniversary. See you
Thank
later,
you.
everybody.